Hi everyone, welcome to TGIF. Another Friday, another episode. Software engineering practices have evolved significantly in the last 10 years. Yes, we talk about green software, we talk about secure code, an interesting topic for sure. But I'm today pleased to welcome Nahas Mohammed. Nahas is Regional Sales Director at GitHub India, and I'm going to quiz him on the very aspect of writing secure code. Nahas, welcome to TGIF.
Thank you, Sandeep. I'm so happy to be here. Hey, folks.
Wonderful. Now, quickly, if you look at the way we wrote code in the past, traditionally, I don't know how many years back was that, but it was, I would call it as traditional software development.
Yep.
In the recent past, with so much of OS's goodness, the way people build software has dramatically changed.
Absolutely.
Right? On that trail, there is a challenge for sure. I want you to reflect on how has things changed in the recent past and how enterprises build software.
Okay, so as you rightly said, right, open source has been around for quite some time, and GitHub has been playing a leading role in this by being the home to the largest open source ecosystem out there, right? While, and there are some studies that show today, right, like of the production software that's running out there, 90% of them have a OSS component.
Wow.
And when you double click on that again, about 80% of that code base actually comes from open source. So effectively, the developer actually adds his special sauce, so to speak, is that 20% on top, which makes that application entirely unique and innovative.
Right.
So this is great for enterprises. Why? Because I'm able to respond much quicker, innovate much faster, and all of that.
Right.
But at the same time, it also adds an element of anxiety with the enterprises, because they have about 80% of their code that's not built by their team, and they're like, is it safe? Is it secure?
Absolutely.
So that level of anxiety is something that we come across all the time.
Wonderful. That brings us to the point, as you rightly said, enterprises are worried. For anybody, for a CIO for that matter, if they're building a software for the enterprise, the question is how much of that is open source and how much of that they've not seen. That means there can be a lot of secure vulnerabilities, right? The question is, we were moving towards what is termed as shift left security, but constructing secure code is the need of the hour, right? So your take on that?
So, okay, so again, with customers that we talked to today, right? What we've seen as a common thread, I wouldn't say that's true for all the time, but in most of the cases, what we've seen is that the way it works is the developer writes the code, he flips it over to QA, and then InfoSec comes in and does a scan, and then sends it back with a report saying that, hey, Mr. Developer, these are the kind of issues we see in your code.
Right.
At that time, like you've written code this, right? The moment you're done with your piece of code, you want to move on, right? You move on to the next one.
Absolutely.
By the time the report comes back, the context has changed, the environment has changed, and there's such a loss of productivity to kind of go back and make those fixes. And obviously, none of the developers love seeing bugs against their name. I mean,
by the way, if the bug is found in the code which I have not seen, additional challenges.
Yeah, so that just adds to it. So the idea here is to, instead of making it an afterthought, how do we get this closer to the developer so that this code is written right the first time, and so that we avoid these vulnerabilities to be caught at a later point, like which is true. Even if you remember when the bugs that we used to build back then, not code, the later you catch the bug or the later you catch the issue, the more expensive it is to fix it. And when I say expensive, it could be cost of production, cost of brand, cost of exposure, a lot of things that they can be all together. I mean, when you look at just the cost. So the idea for us is to try and get this as close as to the developer as we can, so that we prevent it rather than react to it.
Got it. Got it. See, the question Nahas is now, as a developer, I'm skilled in programming. Now, aspects like finding vulnerabilities, of course, that's a skill I have to acquire. That's where I personally feel tool support will be critical. But way forward, would that be the only element in terms of ensuring developers stay on top of this game to ensure that they build the most secure code?
Yeah, so like you rightly said, you need to empower the developers with the tools, right? You've been there, I've been there, right? Our objective is to get the code out of the door as quick as we can, right?
Possible,
Security is important, no doubt, but it's always an afterthought. So what we are trying to do is to try and, like I said, we're trying to get it as closer to the developer, right? But no matter what tooling you do, every solution has to be a combination of tool, people, process.
Wonderful.
Right? It has to be a combination of these two. One of these things alone is not going to fix the problem.
Right.
So one thing GitHub is investing is to ensure that we provide the developer with the right tool set.
Wow.
Now, as it gets closer to the developer, as he's writing codes, over a period of time, when he sees that there are these vulnerabilities being detected, it will eventually change a behavior. It will drive a behavior change where they start thinking security first.
Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So this works well for everybody in the picture, right? The developer is able to write the code the first time,
right,
which has got zero vulnerabilities. The environment, which means he's able to ship much faster, which means enterprise is able to innovate much faster, and it just becomes a really, really great cycle that takes it forward.
Perfect. Can you talk about a few tools? I know we've heard about GitHub Advanced Security and a few things, but just a few that people can remember.
For example, there are components that you would use from the open source, right? We have Dependabot that basically goes and searches for dependencies. Are there any vulnerabilities in your dependencies that you're using? GitHub being in fact, we are one of the largest CV database maintainers out there. So we are aware of the most common vulnerabilities. Another scenario is where when people write code, they sometimes tend to leave the tokens in there, secrets in there, right? Happened to both of us. But again, so those are things which we have capabilities built within the tool that all these are captured right up front. I mean, you can imagine the risk of putting a secret or a token out there, right? So it's not just about having the token out there, but if that can be misused,
absolutely,
the impact can be quite bad. So folks, I would strongly encourage you to go check out github.com/security. All the information that we spoke about today is available in much finer details out there, and I would encourage you to go and check that out.
Wonderful. Nahas, this is brilliant. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Man. And for all of you watching us today, as Nahas rightly said, it's not just about the tooling, it's about people and culture. I think it's a cultural shift all of us are going through right now that will take us to a stage where we'll think about secure software construction, also over a period of time, green software.
Yes, we'll talk about that next time.
Wonderful. With that, thanks for watching us today. Keep watching TGIF. Have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend ahead. Bye-bye.